Picture this: billions of people, one trophy, and behind every golden moment you've ever celebrated, there were deals made in the dark, hands reaching where they shouldn't, and truths buried so deep, most fans never heard about them. The World Cup is the biggest sporting event on the planet, but beneath the anthems, the tears, and the confetti, it has a history that FIFA would rather keep quiet. These aren't rumors. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented, verified, and in some cases, criminal. This is the story of the scandals that shook the World Cup forever. It was June 22nd, 1986, Mexico City, the quarterfinal match between Argentina and England, two nations still raw from the wounds of the Falklands War just 4 years earlier. This wasn't just a football match. It was political. It was personal. Then came the moment. A ball floated into the penalty box. Diego Maradona leapt and punched it into the net with his left hand. The referee didn't see it. The goal stood. Argentina won 2-1, and Maradona later described the goal as scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. The world erupted. England was furious. Fans were stunned. But the goal was never reversed. To this day, it remains the most infamous cheat in World Cup history. A single moment that exposed how easily human error or deliberate deception could decide the fate of nations on a football pitch. June 25th, 1982, West Germany versus Austria. Both teams already knew the math before kickoff. West Germany needed to win by 1 or 2 goals to advance. Austria needed West Germany to win, but not by too many, to also qualify. Algeria, who had already played, would be eliminated if either of those conditions were met differently. The match kicked off. West Germany scored in the 10th minute, and then, nothing. For the remaining 80 minutes, both teams passed the ball lazily, made no real effort to attack, and played out a slow, almost choreographed performance in front of a furious crowd. Algerian fans waved money at the players. Spanish spectators booed. West German and Austrian commentators were disgusted on live television. The result? Both teams advanced. Algeria, who had beaten West Germany earlier in the tournament, went home. The scandal became known as the disgrace of Gijón, and it directly forced FIFA to change the rules. From that point on, final group stage matches would be played simultaneously, so no team could know what result they needed in advance. The 2002 World Cup in South Korea and Japan was historic for many reasons. But for fans of Spain, Italy, and especially those who watched closely, it became something far darker. South Korea's run to the semifinals was extraordinary, but it came with a series of refereeing decisions so controversial that they sparked international outrage. Against Spain in the quarterfinals, 2 legitimate Spanish goals were disallowed. One for an offside that replays showed was clearly wrong, another for a foul that most analysts could not identify. Spain was eliminated. Earlier, Italy faced South Korea in the round of 16. Ecuadorian referee Byron Moreno disallowed a golden goal, sent off Francesco Totti for a dive that looked like minimal contact at best, and awarded South Korea a penalty that many considered generous. Italy lost in extra time. Byron Moreno was later banned from refereeing. He was eventually arrested in 2010 at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, caught smuggling heroin strapped to his body. The 2002 World Cup refereeing controversy was never officially investigated by FIFA, and no conclusions were ever formally drawn. But the questions have never gone away. For decades, FIFA officials lived like kings. Private jets, 5-star hotels, millions in secret payments. And it was all funded, in part, by the World Cup, the event they were supposed to protect. In May 2015, the United States Department of Justice dropped one of the most explosive indictments in sports history. 14 FIFA officials and sports marketing executives were charged with racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. The total amount involved? Over $150 million in bribes paid over more than 2 decades. The arrests happened at a luxury hotel in Zurich, Switzerland, where FIFA officials had gathered for their annual Congress. Swiss police walked through the lobby and took them away in front of journalists and cameras. The images went around the world. FIFA president Sepp Blatter, who had run the organization for 17 years, announced his resignation just 4 days later. He later faced his own ethics charges. The scandal exposed a system of corruption so deeply embedded that entire World Cup hosting rights, including Qatar 2022 and South Africa 2010, were placed under scrutiny and investigated for vote buying. Qatar 2022 was the most controversial World Cup in modern history, before a single ball was kicked. The small Gulf nation won the hosting bid in 2010 under circumstances that investigators later described as deeply suspicious, with multiple officials accused of accepting payments in exchange for their votes. But the deeper scandal was what happened next. To build the 8 stadiums, the metro system, the hotels, and the infrastructure needed to host the tournament, Qatar relied heavily on migrant workers, primarily from Nepal, India, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. These workers operated under the kafala system, a form of labor sponsorship that critics and human rights organizations described as modern-day indentured servitude. Workers had their passports confiscated. They could not leave without employer permission. Many lived in overcrowded labor camps in extreme heat. The Guardian newspaper published an investigation estimating that over 6,500 migrant workers from just 5 countries had died in Qatar since the hosting bid was won, though the exact number directly linked to construction remains disputed. FIFA collected record revenues from Qatar 2022. The tournament generated over $7.5 billion. The workers who built it earned as little as a few dollars a day. Football has long positioned itself as cleaner than other sports when it comes to doping. But the World Cup has had its own quiet shadows in this department. Cases that were either poorly investigated, buried, or simply forgotten. The most striking case came from the 1994 World Cup in the United States. Diego Maradona, back on the world stage after years of controversy, tested positive for ephedrine after Argentina's match against Nigeria. The substance was found in a supplement called Ripped Fuel. Maradona claimed it was a mistake. FIFA banned him immediately, ending his World Cup career in disgrace for the second time. But Maradona's case opened a larger question. How thorough were drug tests at previous World Cups, in eras when testing was less sophisticated? A 2017 report commissioned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, authored by Canadian lawyer Richard McLaren, found evidence suggesting that samples from the 2014 World Cup in Brazil may have been manipulated, raising serious doubts about the reliability of the anti-doping process at football's biggest event. Behind every institutional scandal, there are human stories. Players who lost careers, whistleblowers who lost everything, families who lost someone. Consider the Algerian players of 1982 who played a perfect tournament, beat West Germany, and were eliminated not by the ball, but by backroom calculation. Or Francesco Totti, sent off in 2002 and denied his best chance at a World Cup title. Or the Nepali construction workers whose names will never appear on any trophy, whose faces will never appear on any broadcast, but whose labor made the most expensive World Cup in history possible. The scandals of the World Cup are not abstract. They have faces, they have consequences, and they are still happening in boardrooms, in referee offices, in labor camps, in anti-doping labs. While the world watches the beautiful game and chooses, again and again, to look the other way. The World Cup will always be the greatest show on earth, but now you know what it costs to put it on.